Good morning, and welcome to our first Leuven Beijing workshop on pre-modern natural philosophy. 你们好，欢迎参加我们第一届Leuven Beijing前现代自然哲学研讨会。It is a great pleasure for Shixiang and me to have you all here today. We started to think about a comparative workshop in the history of pre-modern natural philosophy quite some time ago. And it is delightful to finally be here today with the most splendid format of a promising collaboration between KU Leuven and the University of Science and Technology of Beijing that we wish will go on for many years to come. We live in a globalized multipolar world that is finally emancipating itself from the epistemically twisted logic of Eurocentrism. While the abandonment of such tendencies is already rather common in other disciplines of the humanities, philosophy, and especially the history of philosophy, is moving at a slower pace. This is probably due to the meaningful interactions between the universality we ascribe to philosophical theories and the historical contextuality of their elaboration, the latter very often considered in exegetical terms. Yet there is another approach, another method, if you wish, to look cross-culturally at philosophical theories elaborated by different traditions without betraying the historical context in which they were formulated. This is what grounds a comparative work that is not only philosophically meaningful, but also socially required by our ever-changing societies. And that is the horizon of our workshop, in which we will daringly look at theories and authors from different historical periods, geographical areas, and disciplinary domains, yet sharing similar sets of problems about one big issue: the materiality of the world we see and touch, we think and experience. Shixiang and I warmly thank you for having accepted to participate in such an exploration. We are going to have 6 thematic sessions that start from metaphysics and descend, so to say, to physical, cosmological, and practical aspects of the pre-modern interpretation of the world, and then move back circularly to metaphysical problems. In order to facilitate the cross-disciplinary dialogue, we've asked you to give very short talks, followed by a discussion that, it is our hope, will seed new comparative perspectives on this promising soil. Next year, these seeds will hopefully bloom into something more structured, about which we will talk at the end of this workshop. Now, let me leave the floor to Shixiang Jin, and thank you again for being here today.
Okay, thanks so much, Nicola, for your wonderful opening talk. And thanks to all of you for your presence today. Nicola gave us a concise and a valuable introduction to the features and the plan of our workshop. For my part, I would like to say something about the perspective or method concerning cross-culture comparative studies. As Nicola mentioned, to look cross-culturally at philosophical theory elaborate by different traditions without betraying the historical context is the starting point of our future work. Expanding on this hint, I may ask an additional question on how it would be possible to go back to the alien country if one were following an unreflective episteme or paradigm, looking at the past in the same way we're looking at the present. For me, it's very hard to understand this sentence. Yeah, a lot of people know that. The natural way of doing this is to start from the things which are more noble and clean to us and proceed towards those which are cleaner and more noble by nature. For the same thing are not noble relative to us and noble without qualification. And I also confused about the expression substance and function have a single source, and subtle have no gap. Even when Zhu Xi comment on this as follow, substance and function have a single source refers to the subtest principle, vast and selfless, and myriad images prevalent content in it. His statement, no gap between the evident and the subtle, refers to the perfectly evident image of every event and everything. This principle existing everywhere. Only in recent years, with the help of the historical epistemology, I have realized that I need to almost recite my mind and try not only to grasp the historical actors' categories, but also their practice. Then I'm aware that very early in Chinese philosophy, there was a recognition of substance that entails yung, because it is inseparable from its function and use. The unity of substance and function is grounded on the unity of knowledge or theory and practice and action. This is very different from Aristotelian method claiming that from more noble and clean to us and proceed towards those which are cleaner and more noble by nature. Because in Chinese philosophy, this principle exists everywhere, and it is known by the evident images of every event and everything. That is the change of qi. When one wants to get to know qi, one has to every event and everything. That is the change of qi. I'm sorry. When one wants to get to know qi, one has to get involved with qi in their historical context of practice and action. Accordingly, if we pay more attention to the natural philosophy involved in practice and actions in both pre-modern European and China, the door to a widened epistemic world will open for us. In a word, as Nicola said, this is what grounds on comparative work that is not only philosophically meaningful, but also socially required by our ever-changing societies. That is why we are going to focus on the topic, material, qi, and their epistemes. Let us follow both traditions and their discussion of the material principle, material and qi, that underwent an epistemic fragmentation into plurality of disciplinary episteme following the efforts to grasp how such principle that was supposed to work in theoretical and practice context, from metaphysical to alchemy, pharmacy, weather forecast, and so on. Okay, now let's start our workshop. Welcome our first speaker, Julia de Cesaris.